This dragon fang had sat in the exhibition hall for 300 years, and not a single person had cared. Everyone just treated it like some piece of cheap junk. But only that man knew the truth. Today, he had just picked up a real treasure, because as long as he obtained the dragon organ that matched this fang, he could gain power strong enough to rival the gods. Yet, from the day he was born, his family had labeled him a useless failure. With no other choice, he left the family and headed to the northern part of the continent to survive on his own. Later, through sheer luck, he obtained an ancient relic known as the Dragon Heart. Unfortunately, news of it soon reached the Empire. The Empire immediately joined forces with every faction it could gather and launched an assassination attempt against him. In that moment, he felt nothing but frustration. Was his life really going to end this pathetically? Just as he was sinking into despair, the Dragon Heart suddenly erupted with a blazing light. When he opened his eyes again, he had returned to the Drake family 20 years in the past. The man who had come back was Zeke Drake. 1,000 years ago, the Dragon Slayer Drake single-handedly killed the evil dragon Hammeret and founded the Drake family, now one of the 3 great houses of the continent. Perhaps because of that, everyone born with Drake blood received the blessing of Aura, and only those who awakened Aura could become high-ranking knights. But Zeke was the exception. Even after being reborn, he still failed to awaken Aura, just like in his previous life. Just then, a ding rang out, and a window suddenly appeared before him. It read, "Soul compatibility with the Awakened One, confirmed at 100%. The soul of the ancient divine dragon will now fully merge with the Chosen One's soul." Zeke stared at it in confusion. The window looked almost like some kind of magical projection. But magic was extremely rare in a knight family, and what really caught his attention were the words inside. If he remembered correctly, every term shown there belonged to ancient times. Ancient people classified professions based on personal abilities, while skills were unique powers derived from those professions. The window showed that Zeke's profession was healer. In other words, he should now be able to use recovery-type abilities. But in his previous life, Zeke clearly remembered that he didn't become a healer until he was 20. Even stranger, he could still sense the existence of the firmament. At that point, Zeke began to form a theory. Maybe the abilities from his previous life had returned with him. Just then, a sharp knock sounded from outside the door. From the footsteps alone, Zeke knew it was Decker, the family butler. The moment Decker entered, Zeke instinctively felt a wave of fear. Even though his mental age was already several decades older, that fear of a strict tutor was still hard to erase. At that exact moment, a green light began to glow above Zeke's head. This was his professional skill, peaceful mind, an ability that kept his mental state from wavering under any circumstances. Decker had come only to remind him not to forget the upcoming evaluation. Zeke roughly remembered this evaluation. It was called pancration, and every blood descendant of the Drake family had to spend 5 years being raised in the cradle first. After those 5 years, they would enter the pancration combat tournament. Their sparring opponents were usually chosen by the instructors, though both sides could agree to appoint a specific opponent. Pancration was a combat tournament with no rules at all, so injuries happened every year and deaths were not uncommon. On top of that, academy class placements would also be decided based on this evaluation. By the next day, every descendant of the Drake family had gathered in the family square. Instructor Maruk stood on the platform and reminded everyone that today would be the final evaluation of the pancration tournament. The moment he finished speaking, the crowd broke into whispers. None of them had expected Zeke to actually show up. Even more ridiculous, a useless failure like him was still a direct bloodline member of the family. Every word of their mockery reached Zeke's ears, but now it no longer shook him. At the instructor's command, Aaron and Guta stepped forward for the first match. Aaron raised his leg and landed a brutal kick. With a dull thud, the fight ended almost instantly. Zeke rested his chin on his hand, bored out of his mind. He did not even bother taking a defensive stance, as if he could leave himself completely wide open, and the outcome would still be decided before the fight even began. He remembered how nervous he used to be whenever pancration came around as a child, but looking at it now, it felt almost laughably childish. Unnoticed by Zeke, someone was staring at him with vicious eyes. Before long, it was Zeke and Raven's turn to fight. Only then did Zeke suddenly remember something. Almost every year during the pancration tournament, his opponent had always been Raven. Back then, he had never thought much of it, but now that he looked back, Raven had probably made some dirty arrangement with the instructor. At that moment, Raven spoke in a mocking tone, saying he actually had to give Zeke some credit this time. After all, this guy got beaten half to death every single time, yet still had the courage to keep fighting him. Maybe his body was just packed with inferior genes. Before Raven could even finish, Zeke activated his professional skill, Peaceful Mind. If he did not, he was genuinely afraid he might lose control and slap Raven to death. Thinking that, Zeke's gaze instantly darkened. If you call me inferior one more time, I'll smash your head in without hesitation. The moment Raven heard that, he grabbed Zeke by the hair. How dare a useless failure talk to him like that? And Raven was not only going to call him inferior, he was going to make the whole world know that Zeke was nothing but inferior trash. In the very next second, Zeke swung his palm and activated his skill, Sure Hit. Raven's expression changed sharply, and he quickly covered his face. Zeke looked at his left hand in resignation. He had only meant to knock Raven out, but he failed to control his strength, and the skill activated on its own. The sight instantly enraged Instructor Maruk. He had not even announced the start yet, and Zeke already dared to attack? Zeke calmly spread his hands and asked, "Wasn't this what you taught us? In battle, striking first is what matters." As he said that, Zeke's gaze turned frighteningly cold. Maruk's entire body trembled. For a moment, he actually felt killing intent coming from Zeke. Raven had also recovered by then, and immediately said to Maruk, "Instructor, you can announce the start now." He would teach this inferior trash a proper lesson. The next instant, Raven raised his fist and charged straight at Zeke. At the same time, he kept guarding against Zeke's left hand. After all, that strike just now had almost knocked him unconscious. Zeke moved in fast and threw a left punch. Raven reacted just as quickly, suddenly dropping his body low. Then, he braced himself and slammed towards Zeke with a shoulder charge. Maruk felt his scalp go numb. Was this really the combat ability of 12-year-old children? Just now, when Raven dodged Zeke's attack and used the momentum to try to throw him down, Maruk had already been preparing to declare Raven the winner. But the result completely exceeded his expectations. In a split second, Zeke struck Raven's chin and easily broke free from his grip. Even when his opponent had taken complete control, this 12-year-old child still managed to make the correct counterattack instantly. Raven tried to pull back and create some distance, but Zeke kicked out without hesitation, landing the blow directly on his body. Raven's face twisted in pain, his mind filled with shock. Where did this guy get so much strength? After that exchange, Zeke had more or less figured out the level of power his current body could handle. Then he activated his professional skill, Focus, and his awareness seemed to accelerate in an instant. From that point on, almost every attack Raven threw missed completely. It seemed Zeke had fully gotten used to controlling this body. In that case, it was time to end this. With that thought, Zeke suddenly executed an over-the-shoulder throw. He moved in fast, locked onto Raven's body, and slammed him hard into the ground with a heavy thud. That single throw shattered Raven's ribs. Zeke's low voice slowly rang out. "Getting beaten down in public by an inferior trash like me must feel pretty awful, right?" The spectators all showed looks of terror. Since when had this guy become this strong? Luckily, none of them had joined Raven in mocking Zeke earlier. Just then, a figure slowly stepped out from the crowd and declared that he wanted to challenge Zeke by name. Zeke remembered him. His name was Kenga Waldeck, and in the previous life, he had tormented Zeke plenty of times. Zeke gave a cold laugh. "Sure, I can accept. But fighting you alone would be way too boring. Why not call your servant up here too?" As he spoke, Zeke's gaze slowly shifted toward another figure. At least then, this might barely count as a fair fight. Kenga instantly flew into a rage. Was Zeke openly insulting him? Zeke laughed out loud. "That's right, exactly the way you think." Then, he looked at Liam behind Kenga, and memories from his previous life surfaced in his mind. In that life, Liam had been Kenga's servant, so he naturally gained entry into the family academy as well. But because his blood relation was too distant, he was treated as a far-removed branch member and abandoned by the academy early on. Even after begging desperately, Liam was still thrown out in the end. After that, Liam wandered across the continent and joined a night order called Baron Owen. But before long, Baron Owen was forced to disband. After a period of unrest, Liam became homeless once again, and eventually fell into life as a mercenary. Yet, after long years as a mercenary, he successfully reached the rank of Red Knight, built the Empire's strongest stone mercenary corps, unified the 3 major mercenary corps, and became the undisputed mercenary king of the continent. Later, the Empire hired the Stone Mercenary Corps to launch the Northern Expedition. The Northern region was the Empire's enemy, and Zeke happened to be wandering there at the time, so he naturally became Liam's enemy as well. But in this life, Zeke intended to change the relationship between them. While he was thinking, Kenga had already thrown a punch straight at him. With a dull thud, Zeke easily caught Kenga's fist and spoke in a calm voice. I told you two to come at me together. Why are you so bad at listening? Kenga sneered and immediately switched to a kick. But, in the next instant, a sharp pain shot up from his right foot, because that kick had landed directly on Zeke's elbow. Zeke instantly stepped in front of Kenga. Then he deliberately feinted a punch. Seeing this, Kenga hurriedly raised both hands to protect his face. But the next moment, he suddenly felt an attack strike his right leg. Before long, Kenga had been beaten until he could no longer fight back. His face darkened, and he ordered Liam to step in and beat Zeke down hard. Liam walked forward slowly, radiating a heavy killing intent. Even after living a second life, Liam's physique still made Zeke wonder if this guy was really only a child right now. But if Liam was allowed to seize the initiative, the entire fight would fall into his rhythm, so Zeke immediately changed tactics and attacked first. In the next second, countless figures appeared around Liam and struck at him all at once. This was Zeke's level 1 skill, Wild Flurry, which could disrupt an enemy's vision while delivering rapid consecutive attacks. The spectators' jaws dropped in shock. It was their first time seeing this kind of attack style. Even instructor Maruk could not hide his surprise. Swordsmanship was the mainstream in the central continent, so northern fist techniques were rarely seen here. The problem was that Zeke's current body was still too weak. He simply could not maintain such high-intensity attacks for long. But compared to that, Liam's physical toughness was the real problem. He kept defending against Zeke at a steady pace, never once exposing a clear opening. Zeke remembered that after Liam became the mercenary king in his previous life, his entire fighting style revolved around extreme aggression. Since Zeke's body was already reaching its limit, he might as well go all in and test just how strong Liam's body was right now. With that thought, Zeke threw an incredibly heavy punch. Liam reacted with terrifying speed and tilted his head aside, dodging the blow. That stunned even Zeke, because that punch just now had been his full power strike. Liam was even more impressive than he had imagined. At the same time, Liam seized the opening and grabbed Zeke's right hand. Zeke quickly broke free from his grip, then immediately activated his skill, Focused Sense. Using the momentum, he locked Liam down with his own body. No matter how tough Liam's body was, if the flow of air and blood to his brain was cut off, he wouldn't be able to stay conscious. But Liam did not give up. Instead, he swung his fists and hammered them toward Zeke. Zeke sneered inwardly. Fine, let's see who lasts longer. Everyone watching was completely dumbfounded. If they hadn't seen it themselves, no one would believe this was a fight between two 12-year-old children. Before long, Liam was the first to lose consciousness and collapse. At that moment, the person who had been watching from the shadows smiled again. Now that was more like it. Only like this would defeating you be worth it, Zeke Drake. A while later, Zeke was back in his room. Butler Decker said he wanted to examine him, worried that Zeke might have suffered internal injuries during the fight. But Zeke understood perfectly well what Decker really wanted to confirm. He wanted to know whether Zeke had awakened aura. After thinking it over, Zeke still held out his hand. In the next second, a stream of blue aura continuously flowed into his body. Zeke was slightly surprised. He remembered that in his previous life, this examination had produced no reaction at all. What surprised him even more was that the butler was actually a blue knight. Normally, when confirming awakening, most people only check the aura core. But Decker used the channels to inspect Zeke's entire body. Sending aura into another person's body was no simple task. It required extremely precise control over aura. That meant Decker was definitely a blue knight. Knights were also divided into clear ranks based on martial strength and their ability to control aura. A white swordsman was the stage of someone who had just begun learning swordsmanship. Before the blessing ceremony, most family members remained at this level. A yellow swordsman was the stage where one awakened aura and opened the aura core for training. After receiving the blessing, students in the cradle would become yellow swordsmen. From that point on, they gained the ability to control aura freely. In other words, they became true knights. A purple knight stood on a higher level and could use aura to enhance sword attacks. A blue knight, as the name suggested, was the stage of awakening blue aura. The ranks beyond that were realms only those who surpassed human limits could reach, like Liam, the mercenary king from Zeke's previous life, and the red knight level that Zeke himself had once reached. As for the legendary black knight, that was already a monster-class existence. Across the entire continent, there were only a handful at most. Zeke could not help wondering. A blue knight was already on the level of a knight commander, so why would someone like Decker become a butler for the Drake family? Still, Zeke did not need to worry about Decker discovering anything important, because aura could never sense the existence of the firmament. Just then, Decker slowly spoke and asked whether Zeke was hiding something. He also said he could feel that Zeke had changed somehow. Zeke paused for a moment, then replied, "What you should really be asking is why I've only started changing now. But there are some things you don't need to ask about. Just follow my orders." Decker quickly agreed, saying he understood. In addition, he had already prepared the training room according to Zeke's request. As Zeke turned and left, he roughly formed a plan in his mind. If this butler really had been sent to monitor him, then Zeke would simply pretend not to know and keep him close. Maybe he could even pull some information out of Decker. A short while later, Zeke arrived at his personal training room and raised his hand to summon the status window. Some of his skills had already advanced from beginner to proficient. It seemed that the more a skill was used, the higher its level would rise. But Zeke still had a few questions. Had these self-activating skills existed from the beginning? And would the skills he learned later also appear in the skill list? Also, what exactly made a professional skill different from an ordinary skill? For now, the only thing he had noticed was that their activation methods were extremely similar. Then there was the dragon skill at the very bottom. Zeke had never heard of it before. The system showed that it could not currently be viewed and required 10 karma points to unlock. Karma points could only be obtained by killing monsters. Although dungeons contained plenty of monsters and could be used to farm karma points, the minimum requirement to enter a dungeon was the strength of a purple knight. But compared with that, what confused Zeke even more was why he had returned to 20 years ago. He had a faint feeling that it was probably connected to the ancient relic. What he could confirm now was that this system could help him grow stronger at incredible speed. After all, this world had two forms of power. One was the aura used by knights, and the other was the mana used by mages. Knights controlled aura through their aura core. Mages controlled mana through rings. These two powers conflicted with each other. Once someone awakened mana, they could no longer use aura. In reverse, someone who awakened aura could not use mana either. In his previous life, Zeke had been in terrible condition. He had neither an aura core nor an awakened mana ring. It was not until he was abandoned by his family and met his master that things changed. His master taught him many things, and the most useful among them were how to become a healer and how to awaken the firmament. At present, only Zeke and his master could use the firmament on this continent. That was why he had not worried about Decker discovering the firmament inside his body. After that, Zeke trained in the training room for nearly 2.5 hours, but it left him completely exhausted. Without the help of his healing skill, he probably would not have lasted even 1 hour. But Zeke did not dare use that power in front of others. Otherwise, they would definitely treat him like a monster. A week passed quickly, and now, in the Cradle's public dining area, almost everyone was talking about the same thing. Zeke had somehow changed completely. His grades had shot up from the bottom of the class to the top ranks, and some people even suspected he had secretly used black magic. At one of the tables, Raven wore the same disdainful expression as always. Back then, Zeke had once ordered a custom-made sword, just because his weapon was too heavy. Yet Raven had actually lost to that inferior trash, so there was no need to overthink it. Zeke must have won by pure luck, but a girl named Rena, sitting nearby, clearly disagreed. There was no way that was pure luck, and if they truly believe that, then they have no right to become knights of the Drake family. The next day soon arrived. After Pancration came the swordsmanship duel. Unlike Pancration, this match used real swords, so every year, many examinees died during these matches. Once these 2 year-end evaluations were over, the long-awaited Aura Awakening ceremony of the Drake family would finally begin. At that moment, Zeke walked slowly toward the arena with a great sword resting on his shoulder. His opponent was none other than Rena. She had personally named Zeke as her opponent. Soon, Rena's expression grew serious. She remembered that in the last duel, Zeke had even needed someone to custom make his weapon. But now, he could swing a Scottish claymore with ease. Was it because his physique had grown stronger, making his overall presence more intimidating? However, Rena quickly calmed herself. There was no need to panic. As long as she performed at her usual level, she could still suppress Zeke. At that moment, even Zeke felt a slight sense of unease, because in his previous life, Rena had been known as the Flash Knight, one of the 5-star knights of the continent. And if he remembered correctly, Rena had already awakened before the blessing ceremony. In the early stages, she had been the most outstanding genius among the younger generation of the Drake family. As soon as the referee announced the start of the evaluation, Rena launched her attack and thrust straight forward. Seeing this, Zeke immediately dodged backward and opened up distance. But before he could even catch his breath, Rena's figure flashed behind him. She swung her hand and thrust again, and the powerful sword force instantly sent Zeke flying toward the edge of the arena. Zeke's heart sank. He had not expected Rena to already be this strong at this point. As the two of them clashed again, voices rang out from the spectator stands. "Stop playing around with him and finish him already." But at that moment, one boy snorted coldly. What a bunch of idiots. Rena isn't playing around at all. Although he could not see every detail clearly, he could tell that Rena had been searching for Zeke's openings the entire time. Yet every time she tried to attack one of those openings, Zeke cleverly blocked her. It gave the boy an absurd impression, as if Zeke was deliberately revealing openings while casually guiding Rena's swordsmanship. In the arena, Zeke thought to himself, just as I guessed, Rena's understanding of swordsmanship came almost entirely from textbooks, so every move she made was trapped inside a fixed framework. In that case, he wanted to see whether he could help her break out of that framework. With that thought, Zeke quickly lowered his body. Rena immediately read his tactic. Zeke was probably trying to close the distance in an instant and end the fight quickly. But when it came to speed, she was not necessarily going to lose to him. And in that very moment, Zeke was already right in front of her. At the same time, Zeke raised the greatsword in his hands and moved into a downward slash. Rena sidestepped and easily avoided it. This kind of attack was not difficult for her to handle. The textbook had specific countermeasures for situations like this. As long as she created distance, she could react immediately. But just as Rena was about to repeat the same tactic, the moment Zeke lifted his greatsword this time, he swept up the broken stones on the ground. Rena was completely unprepared. The scattered stones flew straight toward her face, making her expression freeze for a split second. Zeke seized that opening and instantly closed him. Then he swung his blade hard toward Rena's neck. At the critical moment, Rena hurriedly drew on the aura inside her body and blasted the greatsword out of Zeke's hands. The spectator stands immediately erupted in cheers. They had been right after all. As a genius of the younger generation, Rena was simply unbeatable. On top of that, she had not even truly used aura during this fight. But the instructor's expression gradually darkened. The students might not have noticed, but he had seen it clearly. At the very moment the greatsword was about to touch Rena, she had been forced to use a tiny amount of aura, so faint that it was almost impossible to detect. But he clearly remembered that Rena had once sworn she would never use aura before entering the academy. Had Rena gone back on her oath now? Just then, Zeke appeared in front of Rena once again. He gave a cold laugh. The match isn't over yet. As soon as he said that, Zeke swung his fist and struck Rena hard in the neck without hesitation. Rena immediately clutched her neck and dropped to her knees with a thud. The sight left everyone completely confused. This was a swordsmanship match. The moment Zeke's greatsword was knocked away, he should have been declared the loser. And for a knight to lose his sword was a disgrace to a knight family. But Zeke acted as if he had not heard them and said calmly, "What's the point of all that talk? The rule is to win, isn't it?" Then Zeke slowly walked up to Rena and asked if she still wanted to continue. Rena's expression was incredibly grim. She did not believe she had truly lost. Just now, she had only let her guard down for a moment, allowing Zeke to land a lucky sneak attack. But when she thought about it again, if Zeke had been holding his greatsword instead of using his fist, her defeat would have looked even worse. After thinking it over, Rena announced in front of everyone that she had indeed lost this match. Her words left the entire crowd frozen in shock. Zeke, the young master who had always been called a useless failure, had defeated the genius recognized by the entire family. From that day on, his victory shook the whole cradle. Another month passed, and Zeke was now sitting in a carriage headed for the main family. The Drake family's main city was located in the Duchy of Troy, while the family's center stood in the city of Four Seasons in Midland. However, the blessing ceremony would always be held at the birthplace of the Dragon Slayer legend. Before long, Zeke arrived at the Drake family's main city, Dragon's Nest. After lining up and entering the castle, he could not help feeling a little surprised. The participants who had come this time were all major figures he would normally only see in continental newspapers. And among them, there were definitely informants sent by the direct line to keep an eye on him. Still, Zeke did not need to worry too much. As long as they confirmed that he could not awaken, they would naturally lower their guard around him. While he was thinking that, flames of anger suddenly burned in Zeke's eyes. Why is this guy here? Meanwhile, Abel was exchanging polite greetings with the nobles, saying he had suddenly grown interested and wanted to see this year's blessing ceremony for himself. Of course, he was also here to take a look. He wanted to see how his adorable younger brother had performed. And Abel was none other than the second young master of the Drake family. The reason Zeke lost control of his emotions for a split second was that in his previous life, Abel had carried a terrifying title, the Slaughter Knight. But right now, Zeke could do nothing. He also clearly remembered that Abel had never attended the blessing ceremony in his previous life. Before long, the blessing ceremony officially began. Aaron was the first to step forward. He placed his right hand into the water. In the next second, the water sliced open his palm. Then a surge of blue energy instantly wrapped around his body. After that, the energy slowly gathered into his aura core. Every blood relative of the Drake family had to go through the blessing ceremony and open their aura core at the age of 12 when they graduated from the cradle, thereby awakening aura. Ordinary knights from other families usually had to wait until around the age of 20 before they could barely awaken aura. Only in very rare cases would a special awakening occur, such as awakening aura while also awakening the Dragon Slayer trait known as mana disturbance. This was called pure blood awakening. When it was Rena's turn to perform the ritual, the mana flame suddenly flickered red. That meant the Dragon Slayer trait had appeared within Rena's body. The crowd immediately grew excited. After all, this was a pure blood awakening with the potential to reach the level of Blue Knight or even Red Knight. The instructor excitedly ordered someone to bring the gloves at once. With the mana disturbance trait, living normally would become difficult without the special gloves made by the family. But once someone proved they were pure blood, they could use the Drake surname forever and receive all kinds of support and resource privileges from the family. A short while later, Zeke slowly stepped onto the awakening platform. Another wave of noise rose from the crowd. Rena had completed a pure blood awakening not long ago, and since Zeke had defeated her, he might very well be another pure blood awakener. But in Zeke's mind, this awakening bronze statue was nothing but a cursed thing. In his previous life, he had struggled through the cradle while gritting his teeth, only to become the first person in the Drake family to fail his awakening. Everything after that had fallen apart, but this time had to be different. He had become a healer early, and he had also gained control of the firmament. More importantly, he had stood back up through his own will. Damn bronze statue, this time you better not fail me again. Yet even after Zeke thought all that, the bronze statue still showed no reaction at all. Everyone present was stunned. Even Abel's expression turned serious, because this kind of situation had never happened before. Soon, whispers began to spread. This guy only has brute strength. As a direct bloodline member of the family, he can't even resonate with the bronze statue. After calming himself slightly, Zeke gradually understood. Even if he failed to awaken in the beginning, it didn't matter. In his previous life, he had still relied on himself and become one of the strongest people on the continent. But just as Zeke stepped down from the awakening platform, a window suddenly appeared before his eyes. Due to an error detected during system processing, information delivery has been delayed. The current appraisal device lacks information on the relevant profession. The device has confirmed the user's ability as healer. In the next second, the bronze statue suddenly erupted with a dazzling red light. Everyone widened their eyes. Red light again? Without a doubt, this had to be another pure blood awakening. At the same time, another window appeared in front of Zeke. The ancient dragon engraved in the user's soul has been activated. The blessing has awakened the bloodline talent. The blood of the fighter and the awakened talent have combined, giving birth to a one-of-a-kind profession. Congratulations, user. You have awakened the talent of the immortal. But now, the crowd could not help feeling suspicious. Had Zeke really undergone a pure blood awakening? Then why had the mana flame shown no reaction at all? Zeke was also caught off guard. If he said he had awakened the talent of the immortal right now, it would definitely raise suspicion and create unnecessary trouble. Just then, Abel suddenly spoke up, telling everyone to get excited. 2 pure blood awakeners have appeared in the same generation. Isn't that worth a grand celebration for the Drake family? Hearing that, the others quickly agreed. That's right, this is absolutely something worth celebrating. Before long, Zeke also put on the family's special gloves. Although Abel seemed to be helping him, Zeke knew very well that Abel's intentions were anything but kind. Once the blessing ceremony ended, the instructor calmly stepped forward and announced that today's ceremony was over. A celebration party would be held shortly as a reward for everyone. Zeke had no intention of joining any party. He would rather search nearby for a place to train. But at that moment, Abel suddenly called out to him. Abel said he was pleasantly surprised that Zeke had awakened as a pure blood too. As he spoke, he extended his right hand toward Zeke. Zeke was instantly troubled. If he refused outright, Abel would definitely notice his hostility. Should he just play along for now? But just as Zeke was about to reach out, the brutal scenes of Abel from his previous life flashed through his mind. With that thought, Zeke decisively refused the handshake. Abel's face immediately showed a deeply contemptuous expression. Zeke was making things rather awkward for him. Zeke's gaze turned just as cold. No matter what, he would never shake Abel's hand. Abel did not truly get angry. He simply said that if that was how it was, there was nothing he could do. Still, seeing Zeke was enough. After saying that, he patted Zeke on the shoulder and turned away. Soon, Zeke returned to his room. Even now, he still could not figure it out. Logically speaking, all pure blood awakeners possess the mana disturbance trait. That meant they had an ability completely opposite to dragons, which were mana-based creatures. And most of the equipment on the Awakening platform operated through mana. Because of that, pureblood Awakeners had to rely on the family's special gloves to gradually adapt to normal life. As he thought about it, an idea suddenly flashed through Zeke's mind. If he really was a pureblood Awakener, then removing the gloves should definitely cause problems. So why did he feel nothing unusual after taking them off? At the same time, Zeke opened the status window. What it displayed was not mana disturbance, but mana reflection. Mana reflection could distort magnetic fields and disable nearby mana devices. That was why the mana flame had shown no reaction during the ceremony. Also, before the ritual, the system had displayed a rare profession, but now it had changed into the one-of-a-kind immortal. Then, Zeke noticed another strange point. He remembered that when ordinary students awakened, blue light would appear. That was the sign of a normal awakener. Only Rena had produced red light, the sign of a pureblood awakening. As for Zeke, his light had also started as red, but in reality, it had gradually turned gold. Zeke vaguely remembered that the system had said the appraisal device was missing part of its information. Could that missing information have been related to the bronze statue? Only after the system supplied the information did the previously unresponsive bronze statue begin to emit red light. So, was it possible that the bronze statue was not actually meant to judge whether someone had awakened aura, but to confirm whether the user had professional aptitude? Rare professions showed red, while one-of-a-kind professions showed gold. Most likely, because the modern concept of professions had already been lost. Later generations mistook the bronze statue for a tool used to confirm awakening. As a result, rare professions were mistaken for pureblood awakenings. If that was the case, every previous question now made sense. Still, had none of the past family heads ever discovered this problem? After thinking it over, Zeke realized it wasn't impossible. After all, the bronze statue was an ancient relic passed down from the distant past. Some of its information might have been erased by time, and Zeke had only figured it out by accident. While he was thinking, Zeke suddenly noticed that he had gained karma points. It was probably a reward from the awakening. Without hesitation, Zeke used the karma points. In the next second, system windows popped up one after another, informing him that he had unlocked permission to view dragon skills, including Dragon Eye, Dragon's Majesty, and Gluttony. However, each of them required karma points to activate. Zeke couldn't help but wonder. Dragon Eye and Dragon's Majesty were easy enough to understand. The former should let him see farther and easily obtain information on others, while the latter could exert a crushing presence and force opponents to submit. But the final skill, Gluttony, was much harder to figure out. Was it supposed to make him eat like crazy? He still did not understand it, but it sounded promising enough. After thinking it over, Zeke decided to unlock Dragon Eye and Dragon's Majesty first. In the next second, he activated Dragon Eye. At first, nothing around him seemed to change. But soon, Zeke sensed that something was off. The bronze statue in the courtyard suddenly looked as clear as if it were right in front of him. At the same time, a window appeared. Would you like discovered item information to be marked for you? With a ding, detailed information on every object nearby appeared before Zeke's eyes. But just as he was about to examine it closely, his body suddenly felt drained, as if all his strength had been sucked away. It seemed dragon skills were powerful, but they also consumed an incredible amount of stamina. Fortunately, with healing magic, Zeke quickly restored his stamina. But in the next moment, he completely froze, because he hadn't actively used his healing skill at all. Only then did Zeke notice that the status window had changed. All of his professional skills had become always active. In other words, the wounds on his body could now recover automatically. The discovery thrilled Zeke. This was practically the same as having an immortal body. With that thought, Zeke picked up a small knife and cut his own hand. Just as he expected, after only 2.5 seconds, the wound on his hand healed completely. Zeke let out a low laugh. With my current physical condition, I don't need to stay in the academy for the full 5 years. Even with the conservative estimate, 2 years should be more than enough. The scene shifted to the next day. Zeke appeared at the freshman ceremony of Drake Academy. Located in the capital of the Duchy of Troy, Drake Academy was the continent's top knight academy, a place every aspiring knight desperately wanted to enter. Zeke noticed that the upperclassmen here looked almost no different from adults. Their bodies had been trained to an extreme level, with barely a single flaw to be found. Yet even so, they still couldn't compare to the freshmen who had grown up in the cradle. Soon, Zeke noticed something else. The children of the most powerful families seemed to have already formed their own factions. Zeke had always known that among the many branch families supporting the Drake family, three held the greatest influence: the Tuen family, known for strength; the Gemons family, known for wisdom; and the Waldeck family, known for wealth. The children of these families had probably already built their own little circles here, but none of that mattered to Zeke. After that, Zeke hurried over to the high-end dormitory reserved for pureblood awakeners, the Platinum Apartment. The place had everything. It had a dedicated training ground, a library packed with books, and every other convenient facility one could ask for. Only the Academy's top students were qualified to live in a dormitory of this level. Even outstanding students from the cradle had a hard time earning a place here. Pureblood awakeners, on the other hand, were given an entire floor of the Platinum Apartment. The moment Zeke stepped inside, a group of servants greeted him with bright smiles. They also gave him a warm welcome. The scale of it surprised Zeke a little. He had already prepared himself before coming in, but this treatment was still a bit over the top. Just then, Butler Decker stepped forward and said he had something to hand over. Zeke took it and saw that it was a brand new pair of gloves. Since he had new gloves now, he might as well take this chance to forge a new sword too. Decker nodded in agreement. The Duchy of Troy was close to the Giant Mountains, a region rich in high-quality iron ore. It was also home to many highly skilled craftsmen. It was said that most knights who graduated from Drake Academy had their first weapon made in Troy. Decker then asked Zeke whether he needed help finding a reliable craftsman. Zeke waved his hand and said he already had someone in mind. As he spoke, Zeke handed Decker a card with a name written on it and asked him to set up an appointment. The name on the card was Galen Halpert. Decker looked puzzled, since it was his first time hearing that name. After that, Decker slowly handed over a stack of materials and said these were the textbooks needed for tomorrow's classes. Once he finished, he turned and left. Holding the materials, Zeke fell into thought. Now that he was living on the platinum floor, he could finally train his dragon skills freely. But before he could sort out his thoughts, a maid walked over and said Miss Rena had invited him to dine with her. Before long, Zeke arrived on the floor where Rena lived. Rena wore a faint, calm smile and welcomed Zeke's arrival. Then, she raised her hand and made a small gesture. The attendants behind her immediately understood and withdrew. During the meal, Zeke kept observing Rena's condition. As expected of the future Flash Knight, she was currently controlling aura through her aura core. From the look of it, she was already close to reaching the level of a purple knight. But when Zeke thought about her swordsmanship, he couldn't help sighing inwardly. Rena's sword techniques were far too rigid. With talent like hers, that was a terrible waste. After the meal, Rena went straight to the point and told Zeke to accept help from the twin family. Zeke did not agree right away. Instead, he pretended to be puzzled and asked, "Did you forget something? I'm a pureblood awakener, just like you." Hearing this, Rena gently shook her head. It seemed Zeke had misunderstood what being a pureblood awakener really meant. They did receive some benefits from that status, such as being allowed to live on the platinum floor. But when it came to training resources, they did not receive any extra advantage. The Academy possessed centuries of accumulated academic and practical experience, along with private coaches who could effectively improve a student's abilities. Without full support from those resources, even someone with great talent would eventually be eliminated. That was exactly why Zeke needed the backing of a powerful family. Just like Abel, the current Red Knight, he had only achieved his current success with help from the Gemons family. Although the head of the twin family had not explained everything to Rena in detail, she knew that Zeke had not accepted help from any other family before. With that, Rena once again asked Zeke seriously whether he was willing to accept the twin family's support. In the next moment, Zeke rejected her without hesitation. Rena was caught completely off guard. The Tuen family was willing to provide resources and support. For Zeke, that should have been a huge benefit. So why was he refusing? Zeke told her not to overthink it. It was not because of anything else. He simply did not need any benefits beyond those given to pureblood awakeners. Still, since Rena had sincerely invited him to this meal, Zeke would give her one piece of advice. Her sword strikes carried too much momentum. Zeke guessed it was because she cared too much about how the male descendants of her family viewed her. But in truth, Rena's body was extremely flexible, and that was her real advantage. She should not always meet her opponent's attacks head-on. She should try using her flexible body to dodge instead. Then, once the opening appeared, she could deliver a fatal strike. If she could do that, she would definitely become stronger than she was now. Rena suddenly felt as if something had opened up in her mind. Strength had always been the symbol of the Tuen family, and she had been tightly bound by that family mindset. Those problems had all shown themselves in her swordsmanship. Since childhood, everyone had called her a genius, but no one had ever given her advice like this. Rena's thoughts were a mess. Why did she always feel that there was something so different about Zeke? After that, Zeke trained through the entire night in the private practice field. Thinking back to his previous life, this place had once been a nightmare like hell to him. But now that he had become a pureblood awakener, everything was completely different. To him, this place was practically paradise now. Suddenly, a voice called out to him. Zeke, are you in the special class too? The person who came over was Owen Gemmons, the third son of the Gemmons family. In Zeke's previous life, Owen had often played dirty tricks and used others to bully him. This guy looked friendly on the surface, but he was extremely cunning inside. Now Owen smiled and said, I invited you to eat with me yesterday, but it seems you forgot to reply. Zeke looked utterly unimpressed. Are you talking about that letter on my desk yesterday? But why exactly should I reply to you? Before Owen could respond, a tall figure stepped in front of Zeke. You damn bastard. How dare you ignore the young master's goodwill? Zeke looked at him curiously and said, I understand you want to suck up to your young master, but before picking a fight, you should at least check who you're messing with. As he spoke, Zeke casually waved his hand and blocked the big man's attack. At the same time, Zeke realized something. The upperclassman here had basically already learned how to use aura. The big man said, my name is Deben Roswell, and everyone here respectfully calls me Brute Deben. Today, I'll teach you a proper lesson on behalf of young Master Owen. Zeke sneered. Brute Deben? Someone who isn't even a knight dares to use a nickname like that? The moment he finished speaking, Zeke appeared in front of Deben and threw a punch. That single punch sent Deben flying. Zeke looked at the others with open provocation in his eyes. After Brute Deben, who else wants to come up? Hurry up and make your decision, young Master Owen. Those words instantly darkened Owen's expression. He slowly walked up to Zeke and glared at him. Owen snorted, don't get too arrogant. After saying that, he turned and left with the others. 2.5 minutes later, Zeke appeared in the freshman classroom of Drake Academy. Drake Academy was roughly divided into two types of classes. One was the regular class, where students had fixed courses and learning goals from morning to night. The other was the special class. The students in this class were all among the Academy's very best. Aside from basic courses, they could freely choose other courses offered by the Academy. But what surprised Zeke was that almost everyone in the special class came from the cradle. And this year, to encourage the new students of the special class, the Academy had invited a distinguished guest. He was the former commander of the Eastern Empire's battle unit from 20 years ago, a hero who had used strategy to repel an invasion, Howard Drake. The moment Zeke heard that name, his eyes turned ice cold. This so-called war hero Howard was nothing but a despicable bastard. In Zeke's previous life, Howard had deliberately leaked Allied intelligence just to save himself. He only became a hero by sheer luck because his betrayal accidentally disrupted the enemy's plan. Even worse, Howard was the one who had expelled Zeke from the Academy in his previous life. After being forced out, Zeke wandered around the Duchy of Troy, and in the end, he was sold as a slave to Caratel in the south. So in this life, Zeke would make Howard pay for everything he had done. Before long, everyone arrived at the indoor training ground. When Zeke saw the course schedule, something stirred in his mind. Basic dragon slaying was actually a required course for the special class. In his previous life, because he could not use aura, Zeke had spent 2.5 years finishing a course that was originally supposed to take only 3 months. Even now, just thinking about it gave him a headache. The instructor for this course was Andre, who was in charge of basic dragon slaying for the special class. The students immediately began whispering. Andre seemed to be wearing the official Drake uniform. Could he be the rumored red-eyed knight, Andre? Zeke also knew about Andre, the red-eyed knight. He had heard that Andre was not a pureblood awakener, yet he had graduated early from the academy with the highest score. He was a rare genius who appeared maybe once in a century. In the end, the family had even granted him the Drake title. But this man was also famous for being painfully rigid. At that moment, Andre signaled for everyone to quiet down. Then he told all the students to draw their swords. Soon, he noticed the heavy sword on Zeke's back and asked, Zeke, what is going on with that sword? Zeke said nothing. He simply drew the heavy sword and swung it a few times. As you can see, this is the sword I use. Andre frowned. Did Zeke not know that students were supposed to choose a sword suited to their own physical condition? Zeke sighed helplessly. He had known this sword would cause trouble. But if I can use this sword to touch your blade, then I won't need to explain, right? Hearing that, Andre instantly released a powerful pressure, clearly trying to put Zeke in his place. But Zeke did not back down. He immediately activated his hardened mind defensive skill and easily resisted Andre's pressure. Seeing this, Andre slowly drew his sword. He said, as long as your sword can touch mine, I won't punish your rude back talk, and I'll even exempt you from the basic dragon slaying course. Andre then added, I will even exempt you from the basic dragon slaying course. If you can use this sword to touch my blade, then I won't need to explain, right? Hearing that, Andre instantly released a powerful pressure, clearly trying to put Zeke in his place. But Zeke did not back down. He immediately activated his hardened mind defensive skill and easily resisted Andre's pressure. Seeing this, Andre slowly drew his sword. He said, as long as your sword can touch mine, I won't punish your rude back talk, and I'll even exempt you from the basic dragon slaying course. You don't need to worry too much. I don't make a habit of using aura against students. Zeke secretly smiled. He knew Andre's weakness very well, so in theory, he could defeat him. But Zeke also had to be careful. He was probably already being watched by Abel. If he drew too much attention like he had in a cradle, it would definitely cause trouble. After thinking for a moment, Zeke came up with a plan. As soon as his heavy sword touched Andre's blade, he would immediately surrender. With that in mind, Zeke swiftly used a quick draw slash. Andre had plenty of real combat experience, and he blocked Zeke's attack instantly. Zeke was inwardly impressed. As expected of a Blue Knight, truly defeating him would not be easy. But Zeke did not retreat. Instead, he launched an even fiercer offense. The students watching from the side were stunned. An official knight of the Drake family really was on another level. Even after fighting for so long, Zeke still had not managed to touch Instructor Andre's sword. But what they did not know was that Andre's right hand was already trembling uncontrollably from the immense force. Andre was shocked. What was going on with this student? Without using aura, he actually had no guaranteed chance of winning. Sure enough, pureblood awakeners were far too unfair for ordinary awakened knights like him. At the same time, Zeke was carefully observing Andre. His stamina was still as poor as Zeke remembered, and without using aura, his energy was being drained even faster. The Drake family's way of training aura was extremely unique. They did not only use aura during training, even in daily life they constantly circulated it. In other words, for knights of the Drake family, aura was as important as breathing. But right now, Andre was fighting as if he were holding his breath. On top of that, his irregular sword movements were making his stamina drain even faster. At this rate, even if Zeke wanted to pretend to lose, it might not be that easy. Suddenly, an idea flashed through Zeke's mind. If he could lure Andre into using aura, everything would be solved. With that thought, Zeke activated his speed skill. His figure instantly blurred and began appearing all around Andre. Andre's face filled with shock. Before he could react, Zeke had already leaped into the air. Then, Zeke unleashed an extremely powerful sword strike. At the critical moment, Andre was forced to gather aura onto his sword. Then he swung his blade hard at Zeke. This was the first move of the dragon-slaying arts, Skybreaker. The overwhelming force set Zeke flying. When several students saw this, they burst into laughter, feeling deeply satisfied. Rena, however, could not hide the worry on her face. Zeke cursed inwardly. He had acted a little too hard, and that hit hurt more than expected. Still, it was time to end this match. In the next second, Zeke pretended to run out of strength and collapsed to the ground. Andre silently withdrew his sword. Then, he told Zeke that he no longer needed to attend dragon slaying class. After that, Andre looked at the students below. If anyone else doesn't want to attend my class, you're free to come up and challenge me now. The moment Andre's gaze swept over them, every student immediately shut their mouth. The scene shifted. Zeke was lying on a hospital bed, thinking back on his performance just now. Although he hadn't touched Andre's clothes in the end, Andre had been forced to use aura to block his attack. That meant Andre had already acknowledged his strength. Looking at the result, Andre had restored discipline in the class, while Zeke had gained time he could freely control. Thinking carefully about Andre's final strike, it was Skybreaker from Chapter 1, Section 1 of the Dragon Slaying Arts. Zeke had not expected that when a Blue Knight used that skill, its power would be so overwhelming, almost comparable to a Red Knight's technique. So if he wanted to live a truly free life, his current strength was still far from enough. If he did not want to be bound by anyone, he needed overwhelming power, enough that he would never have to answer to anyone. Just then, a figure suddenly appeared in the hospital room. Zeke looked up and saw a red-haired, middle-aged man. He looked weathered, and he seemed to recognize Zeke. "Kid, how did you do that just now? You clearly suffered serious internal injuries. How did you recover instantly?" Zeke's heart tightened. Had this man noticed his healing ability? But Zeke quickly calmed down. No one in the academy knew he had healing powers, so he decided to keep playing dumb. In the next second, the man suddenly struck, chopping towards Zeke with a sharp hand blade. Zeke reacted quickly and immediately dodged to the side. Then, he casually threw a white bedsheet, trying to block the man's vision. While the man's sight was obstructed, Zeke activated several skills in succession, then swung his greatsword and slashed hard at him. But the man blocked Zeke's attack with a relaxed expression. He even calmly commented that Zeke's ability to adapt on the spot was excellent, almost like an experienced mercenary. Zeke stared at the man in confusion. Who exactly was this guy? Why did he say Zeke fought like a mercenary? Did he somehow know about Zeke's previous life? The man held the heavy sword he had taken from Zeke and said, "Compared to a knight, You look more like a mercenary. That made Zeke even more certain of one thing. This man's strength was unfathomable, at least on the level of a red knight. Aside from his master, this was the first time Zeke had felt this kind of pressure. The man then slowly said, "The sword you're holding should be a Scottish claymore, distributed by the cradle. With your strength, why would you use a weapon like that?" Just as Zeke was about to answer, Andre suddenly appeared behind him. Andre spoke up. "So you were here after all, groundskeeper Dexter." Hearing this, Zeke froze inwardly. This guy was just a groundskeeper. After thinking for a moment, Zeke decided it was better to leave first. But just then, the man's voice slowly rang out. "If you have time, come to the greenhouse on the west side of the academy. If things work out, I might teach you something useful." Zeke refused immediately without even thinking. The man sighed in frustration. This kid's temper is exactly like that old bastard Arthur's. The moment Zeke left, he figured something out. Groundskeeper Dexter was definitely a fake identity. Anyone who could casually call the Drake family head Arthur by name was absolutely not an ordinary person. And the only person Andre truly admired in his entire life was Duke Drake, the man known as the Gale Knight. Duke was absurdly powerful, strong enough for one man to rival the combat force of an entire kingdom. And he was also one of the legendary Black Knights. His sudden disappearance back then had shaken the entire continent. Zeke never expected him to be hiding here now. Maybe Andre had come here because he was chasing after him. After all, Andre was Duke's only student so far. And from what Zeke had heard, Duke was a man with terrifying obsessions. Rumor had it that he wanted to become a Black Knight, simply because he liked the color black. Now, Duke had probably developed a strong interest in Zeke, since he wanted to give Zeke some guidance. Zeke could not let this chance to steal a few ultimate techniques slip by. Maybe he could even turn Duke's interest into a full-blown obsession. The scene shifted to a theory class. Pennon, the magic theory lecturer, was teaching when he reached a specific problem and asked if anyone knew how to solve it. Once he finished speaking, the classroom fell completely silent. At that moment, Zeke slowly raised his hand and said he did not quite understand the mana conversion drive formula the professor had just explained. Hearing that, Pennon immediately became excited. This was the first time a student had voluntarily asked him a question. Soon, the magic theory class came to an end. Pennon told Zeke to wait for a moment, saying it was rare to meet such an eager student. If Zeke ever wanted to know anything, he could come to Pennon's research room anytime for answers. And although Pennon looked young, he had won several scholarships at Delphi Magic University. That surprised Zeke a little. He had long felt that this professor was not simple, but he had not expected him to be a graduate of the famous Delphi Magic University. Zeke agreed without hesitation. In his view, building a good relationship with a mage would never hurt. Besides, mages who were good at calculation usually had more open minds, making them better companions than rigid knights. While thinking that, Zeke happened to notice Duke lying on a chair nearby. When Duke saw Zeke appear, he immediately asked why Zeke had not come to the greenhouse to find him. Had he not said that he would teach Zeke something useful? Zeke said coldly, "Didn't I make it clear back then that I'm not interested?" Besides, he was busy training right now and had no time to spare. But at that moment, Duke instantly appeared behind Zeke. Before Zeke could react, Duke knocked him out with an elbow strike. When Zeke woke up again, he was already inside the greenhouse on the west side of the academy. Duke did not bother hiding his intentions either. She admitted outright that he was the one who had dragged Zeke here. The reason was simple. He was interested in Zeke. Seeing this, Zeke gradually relaxed a little. Judging by how impatient Duke looked, he probably did not mean any real harm. After thinking it over, Zeke still decided to use his speed skill and escape first. But Duke instantly appeared behind him again, raised his left hand, and blocked him with ease. Zeke truly could not figure out what exactly had caught Duke's interest. Was it because his internal injuries had healed instantly earlier? With that thought, Zeke simply said, "If you're that curious, then try me yourself." The moment Duke heard that, he vanished from where he stood. Zeke immediately turned his head and watched the surroundings carefully. But in the next second, he saw his own heavy sword flying toward him. Seeing this, Zeke quickly dodged to the side. Then he turned and caught the heavy sword steadily. Zeke spoke in an annoyed voice. "What exactly are you trying to do?" Duke suggested, "Let's make a bet. If your sword touches my sleeve, I'll grant you any wish. But if you give up or admit defeat, you'll have to tell me all your secrets." Just like that, 2.5 hours passed. By now, Duke was full of questions. Zeke did not just have incredible endurance. His ability to take hits was absurdly strong too. His stamina seemed endless, and he could keep repairing his injuries over and over. At that moment, Zeke quietly used his healing skill to restore his condition. With this state, he could probably keep going for an entire day. But if things continued like this, he would never win the bet. So he had to use Dragon's Majesty. Because it was too dangerous, Zeke had never used it before. But his opponent now was a powerful Black Knight, so it should not cause too much trouble. In the next second, Zeke's presence suddenly erupted, and a powerful shockwave spread wildly from his body. Seeing this, a flash of surprise appeared in Duke's eyes. Heh, this brat is actually interesting. Zeke slowly gathered all the strength in his body. Then, using his speed, he unleashed a quick draw slash in an instant. Duke evaluated him silently. This kid keeps repeating the same attack pattern. Compared to the extremely fast fighters I've met before, and compared to the daughter of the Tuen family, it's not exactly stunning. But the vicious determination in Zeke's eyes was something Duke could appreciate. At the same time, Zeke suddenly activated Dragon's Majesty. In an instant, a terrifying pressure spread out, making Duke break into a cold sweat. Without time to think, Duke threw a punch and shattered Zeke's heavy sword. But before Duke could assess the situation further, Zeke used the rising dust as cover and swiftly circled behind him. Then Zeke activated Dragon's Majesty again and slashed fiercely toward Duke. But this time, Zeke's sword passed straight through Duke's body. Immediately after, Duke turned into a gust of wind and vanished. Zeke's heart tightened. He had clearly activated Dragon Eye in that instant. Was this Duke's ultimate technique? Using ordinary sprinting to create a gale? No wonder he was called the Gale Knight. At that moment, Duke quietly appeared behind Zeke and said calmly, "Let's call it a draw, brat." The moment he finished speaking, Duke threw a punch. The overwhelming force blasted Zeke away. At the same time, a window appeared before Zeke's eyes. Due to excessive skill usage, fatigue has exceeded the allowed range. As expected of a powerful opponent, even the recoil from forcing out these skills is this troublesome. After that, Zeke could no longer hold on and slowly closed his eyes. When he woke up again, he found himself back in his dormitory. Zeke was filled with frustration. He had been so close to hitting Duke, but Duke truly lived up to his title as a Black Knight. Zeke had used every method available to him, and he still had no chance of winning. For this duel, Zeke had repeated the same attack pattern hundreds of times, all to make Duke lower his guard. Then, at the critical moment, he used Dragon's Majesty to create an opening. In the final instant, he even activated Dragon Eye to try for a decisive strike. Yet, the technique Duke used at the end still remained completely beyond Zeke's understanding. That was definitely Duke's ultimate move. Although Zeke had passed out from overusing dragon skills, this fight had not been without gains. At the very least, he had witnessed a super high-speed movement technique that surpassed common sense, made possible only by training the body to its absolute limit. The physically weak Andre had probably become the Red-Eyed Knight, thanks to that very technique. Although Zeke had temporarily lost the chance to learn that ultimate move, he had gained something else. He had discovered the true power of Dragon's Majesty. Even a Black Knight could be shaken by that pressure. If he used it on small fry, they would probably submit instantly. Just then, the system opened a window, notifying him that he had received an unconfirmed message. While Zeke was still confused, countless windows began popping up one after another. Speed has upgraded to C rank, high-speed movement. Due to the user's powerful will, the soul has grown. Achievements can now be used to unlock the next skill. In addition, windows for the minimap, inventory, books, quest log, and more were all waiting for Zeke to activate them. Looking at the pile of notifications in front of him, Zeke felt like his head was about to overflow. He decided to unlock the inventory function first. The inventory could store designated items, and as long as he thought about the item he wanted to take out, it would appear directly in his hand. That meant Zeke could easily store any equipment he wanted to carry from now on. Then he imagined placing a dagger into the inventory. In the next second, the dagger appeared in the corresponding inventory slot. The inventory also used different numbers of slots depending on an item's size and weight. When Zeke thought about taking out his greatsword, the greatsword instantly appeared in his hand. Zeke was thrilled. This was far more convenient than a spatial storage box. On top of that, the inventory could continue expanding through achievements. A function this powerful was only a lower administrator skill. If it reached a higher level, its power would be hard to imagine. It seemed he would have to plan carefully whenever he used achievement points from now on. At that moment, Butler Decker entered Zeke's room. He said that groundskeeper Duke had a letter for Zeke. Zeke slowly opened the envelope and saw only one short sentence written inside. "If you want a rematch, come find me anytime." A spark of hope lit up in Zeke's heart. It seemed he had not completely failed yet. He still had a chance to learn Duke's ultimate technique. At the same time, Decker brought another piece of news. the blacksmith Zeke had mentioned last time had been found. However, there was a problem. The blacksmith refused all appointments and said he would never forge weapons again. After learning where Galeon lived, Zeke immediately took a carriage to Fafnir blacksmith shop. In his previous life, Zeke had once saved Galeon's life. As repayment, Galeon had forged a masterpiece for him, the Sun Sword Grammar, perfectly matching his nickname as the Soul Blacksmith. That sword seemed capable of seeing through its user's soul, and it possessed the exclusive ability Zeke needed most, converting the firmament into aura. However, the condition of the continent's top blacksmith in front of him surprised Zeke. Galeon looked absolutely terrible, although Galeon had moments like this from time to time. This time seemed especially serious. Had he gone through some other hardship before meeting Zeke? Zeke picked up a bucket of cold water and poured it straight onto Galeon's face. That should wake you up. Zeke wanted to know why Galeon had refused his commission. Galeon noticed the gloves on Zeke's hands and quickly recognized them as the symbol of the Drake family. Without the slightest hesitation, he immediately apologized. I truly didn't mean to offend you. It's just that in my current state, I can't take any commissions. If I can't even make the things I want to create, how could I satisfy your request? Zeke felt puzzled. He had not expected Galeon to be trapped in this kind of struggle. Thinking back to when he met Galeon in his previous life, Galeon had already been one of the greatest blacksmiths on the continent, but he had never really mentioned anything about his past. Still, Zeke had no patience to wait for Galeon to slowly fix himself. Time was not going to wait for anyone, so Zeke asked whether he could take a look at Galeon's failed works. At this point, the best option was to help him identify the problem first. With Galeon leading the way, Zeke arrived at the courtyard behind the blacksmith shop. The moment he entered, he was drawn in by what he saw. The weapons here were so exquisite, they looked like works of art. Zeke then examined the weapons one by one. He found that they did not look like failures at all. In fact, they were just as impressive as the works Galeon would create after becoming a top blacksmith in the future. Then, Zeke used Dragon Eye to inspect the weapons again, and he quickly discovered the issue. The problem was probably the furnace. Galeon must have used his own original forging method, mixing multiple metals together to create a lighter material. But the hardness was far too low. The issue must have occurred during heat treatment, where the excess impurities had not been properly removed. Galeon's eyes widened in shock. Zeke had not only seen through his forging method, but had also pointed out the fatal flaw with terrifying accuracy. Galeon began thinking, if it was this person, then maybe he really could help him solve the problem. So, Galeon made a proposal. As he spoke, he slowly opened his design blueprint. Zeke recognized it at a glance. This was the key to Galeon's success 10 years later. The blueprint for the magical furnace. This design would allow someone to freely control the furnace temperature through magic. Looking at it now, the design was indeed brilliant. But Zeke was still confused. If Galeon had already created the blueprint, why had he not built the furnace? Galeon explained helplessly that he had not yet designed the most important part, the mana drive chamber. If he commissioned the magic tower to design it, it would cost at least 10,000 gold coins. An ordinary family only spent around 10 gold coins a month on living expenses, so to Galeon, that price was astronomical. Then, Galeon spoke with anticipation. He knew Zeke was a pureblood awakener of the Drake family. If you help me finish this furnace, I'll be willing to forge any weapon for you, unconditionally, for the rest of my life. This made Zeke fall into thought. Although he was indeed a pureblood awakener from the Drake family, 10,000 gold coins was still a huge sum for him. If he had support from the family, there might be a way. Then, after a moment of thought, Zeke came up with the perfect solution. He accepted the proposal. I'll entrust the work of creating the mana drive chamber to a mage I know. If there are results, I'll notify you immediately. Also, stop wallowing in self-pity, Galeon. After saying that, Zeke turned and left the blacksmith shop. After returning to Drake Academy, Zeke hurried straight to the Faculty Research Institute. Looking at the blueprint in his hand, he felt that structurally speaking, the mana drive chamber should not be too difficult to make. After all, even night classes covered the basic method behind it. So why had the magic tower asked for such an outrageous price? Fortunately, Zeke knew Pennon, and Lecturer Pennon's specialty happened to be mana-based magical drives. While he was thinking, an argument nearby caught Zeke's attention. Only then did he realize that this alley was the very place where he had often been bullied in his previous life. At that moment, Raven was throwing a furious tantrum. Some unheard-of golden reaction? Some super awakener beyond pureblood? Stop joking. I only lost to Zeke by accident. Sure, he had lost. But how could that inferior trash possibly be a pureblood awakener? Just then, Zeke's cold voice slowly rang out behind him. Raven, I didn't expect you to find a new target to bully so quickly. But I'm only giving you 3 seconds. Get on your knees and bow your head." Raven looked utterly disdainful. "Zeke, don't think you can act this arrogant just because you became a pure-blood awakener." Those words instantly enraged Zeke. At the same time, the pressure around him surged. "Shut that filthy mouth of yours. While I'm still willing to talk nicely, get your head on the ground." Raven froze on the spot, shaken by that overwhelming killing intent. Just a few months ago, Zeke had been the useless failure Raven could bully however he wanted. Yet now, Zeke dared to turn around and step on his head. In panic, Raven signaled to the people beside him. "What are you waiting for? All of you attack together and beat this arrogant bastard down." Seeing this, Zeke felt speechless. He had already given them a chance. He first shifted to the side and easily dodged the big fist coming at him. Then he used the opponent's momentum and delivered a heavy counterattack. That punch carried enough force to knock the opponent straight to the ground. Facing a group attack, Zeke showed no panic at all. The attackers struck again and again, but they could not even touch the edge of his clothes. Meanwhile, every strike Zeke threw landed precisely on their vital points. Before long, everyone had been knocked to the ground, groaning in pain. Raven could hardly believe his eyes. How was this possible? Was this really the family's useless failure Zeke Drake, the same guy he used to know? Zeke walked toward Raven step by step and said coldly, "Don't be so afraid. Pain only lasts for a moment." Raven completely panicked. Trembling, he drew his sword, trying to give himself courage. "If you dare to take even one more step closer, I will kill you without hesitation." Zeke's gaze darkened at once. Drawing his sword outside the training ground? "Do you know what that means, Raven?" Raven Kunrat has drawn his sword outside the training ground and shown killing intent. Then I, Zeke Drake, have the right to respond to that threat with killing intent of my own. According to tradition, this battle will now be fought with lives on the line. All responsibility afterward will be borne by the individuals involved. We both swear that after the fight ends, neither will pursue responsibility against the other. And Liam Stone will serve as the witness to this battle. After hearing Zeke rattle off all those words, Raven's legs instantly went weak, and he dropped to his knees. At that moment, he no longer cared about saving face. Looking at Raven's miserable state, Zeke could not help remembering all the humiliation he had suffered in his previous life. What a ridiculous little man. In the next second, Zeke raised his sword and brought it down. He directly cut off one of Raven's ears. "This ear will take the place of your life. Remember this. The next time I see that ear restored, what I cut off won't be your ear. It'll be the thing between your ears." After saying that, Zeke turned and left the alley without a trace of mercy. Just then, Liam called out to him. Even now, Liam still did not understand why Zeke had helped him. Zeke told him not to misunderstand. "I'm not saving you. I'm only saving the version of myself from the past." It was not that Zeke was being dishonest. He simply could not bring himself to say those mushy words people use to comfort others. A short while later, Zeke found lecturer Pennon in the research room. Pennon looked over the blueprint in his hand and slowly said, "In conclusion, the design is feasible. The key is the core responsible for output. The core is basically the heart of the entire drive formula, and this furnace has extremely demanding requirements for it. The core it needs must be small, while also possessing powerful energy. It also requires highly precise time control. A design like this has almost no precedent." Zeke was a little confused. Even with such harsh conditions, it should still be possible to make it, right? Hearing that, Pennon nodded. "At the moment, there are roughly two methods. The first is for me to personally design the drive formula while taking the special conditions of the core into account. But calculating the core alone will take more than 15 years. 15 years? Zeke thought in shock. How did Galeon do it in my previous life? Pennon continued. There is a second method. Instead of designing the core directly, we could use another material as a substitute. That would greatly shorten the time. The problem is that the material is a highly compressed monostone. Zeke slammed his hand onto the table. Isn't that an ancient relic that modern technology can't produce? Professor Pennon shrugged helplessly. That's exactly the case. Relics like that are extremely rare even in ruins, and if we found a suitable one, it would probably be worth at least 3,000 gold coins. Zeke was instantly troubled. 15 years was far too long. If someone discovered during that time that he could not use aura, he would definitely be expelled from the academy. But 3,000 gold coins was still a huge amount for him, and he could not give up on the Sun Sword Grimoire. Because that sword could convert the firmament into aura. In certain situations before, Zeke had used the firmament to make everyone think he could use aura. But in reality, aside from the protective aura his master had taught him, he could not truly use aura at all. As for dragon-slaying swordsmanship, which required aura, all he could do was use protective aura to strengthen his body and swing the sword. Compared to that, aura was definitely more practical than the firmament. So after thinking it through, Zeke had to find a way to obtain the Sun Sword grammar as soon as possible. But where was he supposed to find a highly compressed mana stone? Just then, Professor Pennon could not help praising the person who had made this blueprint. Whoever designed it is truly impressive. Even with such a complicated core requirement, the overall structure is still this efficient. Even in Golden Age ruins, an internal furnace design like this would be rare. His words immediately reminded Zeke of something. He had almost forgotten about that Golden Age ruin. Then Zeke turned to Pennon. Please start organizing the design for the drive chamber before I return. Pennon was shocked. Are you seriously planning to make me spend 15 years building this furnace? Zeke gave a small laugh. Just sort out the general idea first. I'll go bring back a highly compressed mana stone right now. Soon, Zeke arrived at the central library of Drake Academy. The so-called Golden Age began after Drake and Drake killed the evil dragon Hammerit, allowing humanity to enjoy 100 years of peace. The ancient relics discovered in Dragon's Nest at that time were all top-tier magical legacies, peak items from the Hero King era. The technology and magic contained within them far surpassed modern standards, and a highly compressed mana stone capable of supporting the mana consumption of an entire village was one of the precious relics of the Hero King era. The central library had been personally designed by Drake and Drake. Although it was not used often, it had always been carefully maintained by dedicated staff. Later, during an expansion project, people accidentally discovered Golden Age ruins. At that time, not only did members of the Magic Tower join the excavation, but even a magister from Nirvana, one of the 3 transcendent families, took part. After several months of digging, they unearthed many Golden Age relics. That discovery caused quite a stir back then, but all of that would only happen 10 years in the future. The moment Zeke entered the library, he decisively activated Dragon Eye. Instantly, he sensed something unusual inside the library. Sure enough, there was a hidden entrance there. Zeke sensed that the space inside was hollow. He immediately gathered the firmament in his hand and used the soul body technique. The soul body technique was taught to him by his master, and it was the only skill that could use the firmament. By injecting willpower into the firmament, Zeke could gain cutting power, and the skill was useful in all kinds of situations. Of course, it also came with a serious drawback. It consumed a massive amount of the firmament. As Zeke slowly used the soul body technique, he soon managed to enter the underground space beneath the library. Then he carefully made his way deeper inside. Suddenly, a sound from the side caught his attention. It was a skeletal creature. Judging by the weapons they carried, these skeletons did not seem to be creations made by mages. In that case, he needed to take them out quickly. A short while later, Zeke completely eliminated the 2 skeletons. At the same time, a window appeared. 2 skeletal creatures killed, 2 achievement points obtained. Only then did Zeke remember that killing monsters could also earn him achievement points from the system. He had nearly forgotten this method of farming a large number of points. After that, Zeke killed roughly 20 more skeletons in a row. Now, he had 40 achievement points. Without much hesitation, he unlocked the minimap function. In the next second, a complete map slowly appeared before his eyes, looking almost like a magical map. Then, Zeke noticed a conversion device beside it. It could convert the flat map into a 3-dimensional map. Zeke was thrilled. This function was way too useful. But why was this room marked in red on the map? Just then, another window appeared ahead of him. Would you like guidance to the Dragon Slayer's tomb vault? In the next moment, Zeke decisively pressed confirm. Immediately, the fastest route to the destination appeared before him. With this, he would never have to worry about getting lost again. Before long, Zeke arrived at the destination. He was just about to push open the door, but a powerful magical force instantly blasted him back. It was a defensive magic barrier. He must have triggered a mechanism set up by members of the Magic Tower. If not for the gloves he was wearing, he probably would have lost his hand. But since he could not open the door himself, maybe the system could help him. Sure enough, in the next second, the system actually removed the defensive magic for him. Zeke could not help asking, "System, can you understand what I'm saying now?" The system's voice slowly sounded, "Of course. Do you have any other requests at the moment?" Zeke had never expected the system to possess self-awareness. Then, he curiously asked why he had returned to the past. However, the system refused to answer that question. Zeke went on to ask several other important questions, but every answer he received was a refusal. The system would not reveal a single truly important thing. Then, opening the door for me should be fine, right? As soon as Zeke finished speaking, the door slowly opened in response. Immediately after, countless huge treasure chests appeared before his eyes. Could all of these really be treasures? As the name suggested, treasure chests were filled with precious relics and valuables. Finding even one could bring someone a massive fortune, yet there were hundreds of treasure chests here. Zeke did not hold back at all and directly stored every single chest in his inventory. Among them, he successfully found the highly compressed mana stone he had been dreaming of. And after looking closely, he realized there were quite a few of them, 4 in total. One highly compressed mana stone could expand the inventory by 4 slots. Although he could currently add more than 40 slots, Zeke still felt that was nowhere near enough because there were simply too many things here. Just as Zeke was about to leave, a powerful presence suddenly surrounded him. In the next second, a magical barrier wrapped tightly around him. Before Zeke could fully react, he was teleported by magic to an unknown place. Filled with confusion, Zeke quickly asked the system where this place was. The system answered, "You are now in the Dragon Slayer's resting place." That answer only made Zeke more confused, because in all the future information he knew, there had never been any mention of this place filled with stone coffins. So he hurriedly opened the mini-map and checked, only to find that this place was not far from where he had been transferred. That meant this was probably a hidden location that had never been discovered in his previous life. Zeke slowly pushed open one of the stone coffins. In the next second, a suit of armor he had never seen before appeared in front of him. At the same time, a system window appeared. Dragon Slayer exclusive equipment discovered. This armor was completely different from ordinary Golden Age armor. There was also a small hole on it, as if something could be inserted there. At that moment, Zeke suddenly realized that the size of the hole seemed to fit a mana stone perfectly. Without hesitation, he placed the mana stone into the opening of the Dragon Slayer exclusive equipment. But the moment he put it in, the equipment began shaking violently. Immediately after, an incredibly powerful impact burst out, blasting Zeke backward and leaving him covered in dust. Zeke was filled with confusion. Was the highly compressed mana stone the power source for this armor? What kind of function would require that much energy? After thinking about it, he decided to ask Pennon about these questions later. Before long, Zeke arrived at the final room. Inside the empty chamber, there was only a single glass coffin. Zeke could not help muttering, "What is this? Such a huge room, and there's only one glass coffin." Just then, another system notification rang out. The sudden prompt startled Zeke. Draken Drake's inheritance has been discovered here. The cursed heart of the mad dragon Hammeret. Zeke could hardly believe it. Draken had actually preserved the heart of the dragon he had slain as an inheritance. No wonder he had been sensing an ominous aura here the entire time. So this thing had been the source. But somehow, this aura also felt a little different. While Zeke was thinking, the dragon heart suddenly reacted to him. In an instant, countless strange voices echoed inside his mind. "That's right, listen to me. I'll kill every last one of you." Zeke immediately realized something was wrong and resisted with sheer willpower. What do those words mean? Why am I hearing these voices? Only then did Zeke notice that a black aura was constantly corroding him. What exactly is this thing? Before he could figure it out, the black aura completely surrounded him. Then an emergency quest appeared. Emergency quest, Draken Drake's experiment. Overcome the powerful curse on the heart of the mad dragon Hammeret. Reward, ownership of Draken's inheritance. However, even though Zeke gritted his teeth and resisted with everything he had, he still failed to withstand the corrosion of the black aura. Soon, he lost control of his own body. This filled Zeke with rage. "What are you mumbling about? You're so loud, it's driving me insane. You say you'll give me freedom? Freedom is something you have to seize for yourself." As the sound of the glass coffin shattering rang out, Zeke actually overcame the mad dragon's curse and obtained ownership of Draken's inheritance. Zeke let out a long breath. That was way too dangerous. I nearly lost my life here. With a ding, the system prompted, beginning absorption of the cursed heart of the mad dragon Hammeret. As soon as the prompt ended, the dragon organ in front of him released a blazing light. Immediately after, extremely pure mana surged into Zeke's body. But the problem was that Zeke had not awakened a ring capable of absorbing mana. As a result, that massive amount of mana with nowhere to go began tearing apart the internal circulation of his body. Damn it, I need to think of something fast. With that thought, Zeke used everything he had, wrapping the mana with the firmament and trying to seal it inside the firmament hall. After a thunderous explosion rang out, Zeke finally succeeded in sealing away all the mana. He also noticed that a dragon mark had appeared on his chest. It seemed to have appeared when he sealed the mana. Then countless system windows popped up one after another. The mana absorbed has altered the administrator's body. Administrator constitution changed to heavenly bone body. Power beyond the administrator's capacity has been detected. 95% of the compressed sealed power has been restricted. As the user has obtained successor qualifications, access to Draken's security archive is now available. Beginner quest log opened. Tutorial prepared for the lower administrator. Zeke stared at the notifications in confusion. What is all this? Just then, he saw another new system window. Would you like to open another inheritance left behind by Draken? Zeke gave a small laugh. I didn't expect my ancestor to be this generous. Soon, Zeke returned to his academy dormitory. After organizing the inheritance he had brought back, he opened the system and checked his current status window. After this trip, many new things had been added. For example, the dragon skill Word Spirit Arts, though it would only unlock after he grew further. Aside from that, there was also a new skill called Omnipotence, which allowed him to freely command dragons and issue orders to subordinate dragons. There was also his new constitution, Heavenly Bone Body. It would not only allow Zeke to bring out his best physical ability, but also improve his martial training speed and his body's conductivity for the firmament. But even after reading these explanations, Zeke was still full of questions. He remembered that many windows related to Draken had appeared at the time. After thinking for a moment, Zeke asked the system to open all notifications related to Draken. In the next second, a system prompt sounded. Updating information is required to access Draken's security archive. Please move to a location where the information can be updated. Immediately after, a specific location was marked on the minimap. The moment Zeke saw the marked location, his eyes widened. Valhalla? Valhalla was the training institution for top-tier knights. Aside from authorized personnel, no one else could enter. Even as a direct member of the Drake family, Zeke could not sneak in easily. And originally, he had not planned to go there at all. But once he thought about the important information related to Draken that might be hidden there, Zeke had no choice but to change his plans. It seemed he would have to remain in this family a little longer. Just then, another system notification sounded. Preparing tutorial for lower administrator. After the tutorial ends, quests will be issued to support the administrator's growth. Rewards will be granted upon successful completion. As soon as the notification ended, the system began the tutorial. Immediately, Zeke was transported into another dimension, his heart filled with curiosity. What kind of place is this? Am I going to be sent to some strange, unknown location again, just like last time? But Zeke quickly realized this time was different, because the entire space around him had changed. Just then, 3 massive orcs slowly appeared around Zeke. With a ding, a tutorial quest notification appeared. Defeat monsters using 2 or more skills within 1 hour. Reward, achievement points, and shot function unlocked. Zeke's interest was immediately sparked. The system actually materialized the entire scene. This tutorial quest is pretty interesting. He activated high-speed movement and easily dodged the monster's attacks, then immediately followed up with a consecutive attack skill. In an instant, every monster around him was wiped out. At that moment, Zeke clearly felt the Scottish claymore in his hand become incredibly light. He guessed this was probably the effect of the Heavenly Bone Body. Judging by his current condition, defeating a purple knight should no longer be a problem. Before long, Zeke was transported back to the training ground. Then another system notification sounded. Due to the outstanding completion of this quest, the administrator has received an extra key reward and extra time reward. Quest reward, 40 points obtained. Shop function unlocked. That meant Zeke would be able to buy things from the shop from now on. After checking carefully, he found that almost everything inside was a rare item. Zeke first tried selling a few pieces of equipment. The system informed him that the practice greatsword could not be sold, while the elven dagger could be sold for 4 points. It seemed the shop could only buy ancient relics, but Zeke did not urgently need points right now, so there was no reason to rush into selling anything. The next day, Zeke went to see Lecturer Pennon. Pennon looked completely shocked and couldn't help asking, "Where on earth did you find something like this?" Zeke simply said, "It's a long story, but more importantly, when will the drive chamber be finished?" Pennon told him, "Don't worry, the drive chamber is already complete. Compared to that, you finding a mana stone in such a short time is the truly impressive part, Zeke." At that moment, Pennon had already begun to suspect Zeke. After all, every mana stone was registered in ancient script to manage ownership. Through the serial number, one could confirm the excavation period, excavation site, and current holder. But the mana stone Zeke brought today did not appear in the registry at all. Still, Pennon did not show those suspicions on his face. The scene shifted, and the two of them arrived at the blacksmith shop in the backyard. As the magical furnace began to operate, Galen looked unbelievably excited. "I never thought I'd actually get to see a magical furnace successfully running in my lifetime." Just then, Zeke slowly took the dragon fang out of his bag. If you have time, use this to forge me a sword." The moment Galen saw the fang, his entire body trembled in shock. Isn't this a dragon fang? And it looks exactly like the strongest fang of the cursed mad dragon Hammerit. It's preserved so perfectly. Where on earth did you find it? Zeke chose not to hide the truth. Your guess is correct. This is Draken's second inheritance. Galen was so excited that his voice trembled. You not only helped me build the furnace, but you're also giving me the chance to forge a legendary dragon fang. He told Zeke, "Rest assured, I will absolutely not disappoint your expectations." Seeing Galen's reaction, Zeke could not help remembering certain things from his previous life. This man really hasn't changed at all. Still, Zeke was genuinely looking forward to the new sword Galen would forge. After that, he returned to his exclusive dormitory. At that moment, Zeke suddenly remembered that an entire week had passed since his bet with Duke ended, and Duke sent the letter inviting him to challenge again. Logically, Duke should have made some kind of move by now. While thinking that, Zeke sharply sensed movement behind him. Then a voice slowly came from behind. "Brat, why didn't you come find me this time?" Zeke felt speechless. Hadn't Duke said to come find him if he wanted to challenge him again? But Zeke had never planned to challenge him again, so of course he had not gone. At that moment, Duke instantly appeared in front of Zeke. He said coldly, "That is definitely not the truth." The moment he finished speaking, Duke grabbed Zeke and threw him out. Before Zeke could even process what had happened, he had already been tossed out the window. That scared a cold sweat out of him. If he fell from this height and failed to use his healing skill in time, he would definitely die on the spot. In his panic, Zeke could only reach out and grab the railing. But at that moment, Duke had already caught him by the neck. "Did you really not want to challenge me again? What a joke. I saw through your thoughts long ago. You clearly understood what I meant, yet you still refused to come. Last time, and this time. Are you seriously trying to anger me?" Zeke's heart tightened. Had this guy known all along that Zeke was messing with him? "I'll give you 5 seconds. Tell the truth." Zeke's mind raced, and then he slowly smiled. "But you never told me your true identity either, did you, groundskeeper Dexter?" Hearing that, Duke threw Zeke back into the room. "Brat, you've got some nerve. It looks like you figured it out long ago." He was indeed Duke Drake, the former Black Knight of the Drake family. Zeke quickly apologized, saying, "Please forgive my earlier offenses, Sir Duke. I didn't know I was speaking to an elder of the family." Then Zeke asked his question. "Sir Duke, what did you mean when you said you used to be a Black Knight?" Duke answered casually, "It's nothing complicated. I used to be a Black Knight, and now I'm a Red Knight." Zeke was stunned, because as far as he remembered, knight ranks could only rise, never fall. Duke, however, did not answer right away. He said they would not talk about that for now. From the very beginning, Duke had seen that Zeke was unusual, so he had wanted to take him as an official disciple. The moment Duke finished speaking, an almost unnoticeable smile appeared on Zeke's face. He had not expected this to succeed so easily. After the master-disciple ceremony was completed, Zeke couldn't help asking, "Why did you choose to take me as a disciple?" After all, Duke was famous for refusing to accept students. Even the genius Andre had spent several years before finally becoming Duke's disciple. In truth, Zeke already had a rough guess. The potential he had shown during the bet with Duke had probably made Duke realize that Zeke possessed talent beyond Andre's. But Duke did not answer the question directly. Instead, he told Zeke to try guessing. Zeke tested the waters. "Is it because my talent is strong?" Duke laughed. "Don't joke around. If it were only about talent, I would have taken the Tuan family's daughter as my disciple long ago." What Duke truly valued was the vicious drive inside Zeke. Even among 1 in a million geniuses, not everyone could possess that. To move from the level of Red Knight to Black Knight, many people failed because their growth had been too smooth, and one setback was enough to break them completely. Zeke deeply agreed with Duke's words. Many geniuses who originally had the talent to become Red Knights ended up stuck at the Purple Knight level, precisely because their mindset failed them. After that, Duke brought Zeke to the training ground beneath the greenhouse. Before training began, Duke asked Zeke a question. Then he suddenly grabbed Zeke's hand. Zeke instinctively shook him off with force. Then he quickly opened distance from Duke. Duke looked puzzled. "Are you unwilling to let a Red Knight check your pulse?" That sentence made Zeke break into a cold sweat again. Duke then asked another deadly question. From the very beginning, he had found something strange. After their fight in the treatment room, during the battle for their bet in the greenhouse, and even in the instant just now when he touched Zeke's wrist, Duke had never sensed any aura from Zeke. On top of that, Zeke was extremely resistant to having his pulse checked. Could it be that you really can't use aura?